So in the first half of the 1990s, there was a young tag team in WCW comprised of Brian Pillman and Steve Austin. Two guys that the wrestling world will come to know quite well. Steve Austin obviously goes on to become Stone Cold Steve Austin. You know him as one of the biggest stars of all time. Brian Pillman, arguably equally as influential, although his career didn't reach the same heights or last as long, had a pretty huge impact on the industry. Unfortunately for WCW, neither of them did any of their cool things with them. Following WCW, Brian Pillman had a quick pit stop in ECW where he threatened to take a piss in the ring and had it out with the pencil, but was never really an in-ring performer. Then he showed up in WWF where his former tag team partner, Steve Austin, was suddenly on the rise and had shaved his head and turned into this guy we know and love today. Pillman was still rehabbing from an ankle injury that he sustained in like a car crash, so he couldn't wrestle. So when he showed up in the WWF, they paired him with Steve Austin, sort of just as like his buddy, his supportive friend who would accompany him to the ring, until Austin got into a feud with Bret Hart, a longtime friend of Brian Pillman. So Brian kinda like, wasn't sure what side to take and kind of preferred his old buddy Bret, and this pissed off Steve Austin, so he turned on Brian Pillman. They have Steve Austin what's now referred to as Pillmanize, which is where you place the ankle in between like the top and bottom part of a chair and stomp on it. They claim that Steve Austin's the one who destroyed Pillman's ankle. This starts a feud between Austin and Pillman. Austin is the most badass guy who doesn't take shit from anyone and will beat up his boss. There was a while there where like all of America was jealous of this guy who got to beat up his boss every day. He got paid to beat up his boss for a living. That's living the dream right there. And Pillman was known as like a loose cannon. Pillman was a wild card. Pillman's like the kind of guy who takes a shit in the upper bowl of your toilet and leaves it in there for you to find because he thinks that's funny. Pillman's the kind of guy that like holds dogs for ransom. So on one particular episode of Raw in 1996, Pillman was at home rehabbing this ankle injury, and Steve Austin claimed that he was gonna head down to Brian's house and finish the job. And we see footage from Brian Pillman's house where he's inside conducting an interview and his wife is there and they're sitting on the couch in the living room. Outside the house, Brian Pillman's friends are out there like protecting the realm and keeping it safe. Stone Cold Steve Austin doesn't give a shit. He shows up, he beats up all the friends, he barges into the house, and then on live television, Brian Pillman pulls out a 9mm and points it at Stone Cold. And then like the feed cuts out and it goes all fuzzy and we hear screams and gunshots. I know I say this a lot, but wrestling, guys in tights, like grappling. We're now witnessing a live home invasion. So it cuts away, there's all sorts of commotion, we don't know what happens. Moments later, it comes back and we see Pillman's friends dragging Stone Cold out of the room, and he's still holding the gun, he's screaming, "Get him out of here, get him out of here." And he actually yells something along the lines of, "Get him the fuck out of here," not realizing this is live TV. Then he dropped an F-bomb on USA Network. I'm sure they were happy about that. Like, why would you film that live? You've got two psychopaths in like an arms war, and you're like, yeah, what could go wrong? Pump it out there, live TV, let's go. Brian Pillman, Stone Cold Steve Austin, gunfight, sure, air it. Now keep in mind, this is 1996. WWF up to this point is take your vitamins, say your prayers. And if you think about it, the Austin-Pillman feud was pretty much what sparked the Attitude Era. Also, it helped the Stone Cold character so much because he was not like an A-list guy winning titles yet. He was like on the steady climb. And imagine how badass someone must be to not flinch with a gun pulled in their face and still wanting to fight. I wish I loved anything as much as Stone Cold Steve Austin loves an ass whooping.